Hello, and welcome to this week's webisode of Fishwick Associates. This week, I believe we're talking about odds and ends, and it's going to be a little bit of a hodgepodge of everything. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our owner and founder, John Fishwick. John?
Zach, our host with the most, good to see you. You're in virtual land. I see Judge Daniel out there. He's of course in virtual land. Odds and ends, grab bag. How about this as a word for you, Daniel? Potpourri. You know, we're discussing a number of different things today. First, I want to lead off in the grab bag with our firm was selected by U.S. News and Best Lawyers. It's one of the best law firms in America. That's a great thing.
Yep.
And we're honored for that. That includes obviously all of us who work here. We're proud of that. But most importantly, we're proud of the folks we work for and help. And we're going to continue to strive every day to be one of the best law firms. And we think we are. We're going to continue to make contributions to feeding America. The hunger out there is terrible. Every time we go to court, we make a contribution at the end of the month. Carol and I are headed to court this Friday. We're actually driving to an in-person court hearing. Daniel and I were in court last Friday. So we're active in our litigation practice, court practice.
And we'll be in court a lot in November.
Yeah, we are. So hopefully a hefty contribution. It obviously concerns all of us to see people waiting in line to get food for their families. That's just unacceptable in this country. So
and right in time for the holiday of Thanksgiving too, which is good.
Absolutely. So any small part our firm can play is something we're very proud of. So a lot of things going on here. I'm going to talk a little bit about trials in the pandemic, in COVID. How are they going to work? Are they going to work? Get Zach and get you to talk a little bit about investigations when we deal with COVID. And Daniel will talk about research and writing and how that changed. So trials, there's been no trials since March, basically in the country or in Virginia. There've been one or two since we started back up. But the goal in this region, I think in both the state and federal court, is to try to see if we can get some by year end. I think that's probably a reach. Hopefully after the first of the year, we have a jury trial scheduled in January. We hope that can go. We obviously want jury trials to happen. I think there's a real concern about the safety of all the jurors and the witnesses and how that's all going to work. And I don't think anybody really knows. People are going to have to show up and be socially distanced and have dividers, and the bailiffs are going to have to, clean everything after somebody's testified. And so it's going to be a slower process. I think most people think from talking to judges, at least an extra day gets baked into the process. So you have a 3-day jury trial, it's probably going to take 4 days. And to get everything done and to be considerate of everybody. And then unfortunately there's always a risk that the whole thing gets shut down in the middle of it if somebody's got COVID. But I think we have no choice but to go forward. I mean, we want to go forward. We want to do what's safe for our clients, but I don't think there'll be any this year. Most of our trials have been postponed, but we've got a brisk schedule next year as we try to battle this pandemic and also represent effectively everybody who's entrusted their case to us. So speaking of the pandemic, Zach, most days we ask you to check out something for us on social media or interview somebody or to find out about something. You hit those databases, but how has COVID affected the work you do as you try to investigate our cases?
Absolutely. Well, before I start that, I wanted to go right back to what you were talking about, the trials. I was thinking about the logistics of it, John. I mean, even the jury gallery itself, it physically isn't built to socially distance. I don't even think if you were to social distance, you could get the whole full jury in the gallery there. Yeah,
you're right. And Virginia is, great historical state. Daniel likes that history, but most of these courthouses are pretty old and, and they're not great airflow and they're not really suited for keeping people socially distanced. And so there are going to have to be some real adjustments to that to make that work. I know the judges have given it a lot of thought, and I think it's going to work, but it's challenging.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of the pandemic, for me, it's kind of been a double-edged sword. I mean, on one side, we have the negative, which we don't need to go into detail because everybody is feeling, some negative aspect of the pandemic. However, on the positive for the investigative side is, usually 8 out of 10 times when I call somebody, they're home. So, I mean, it takes out one other factor for me. If I can track them down to their residence or something like that, then I've got a really good chance of actually making contact with that person. Now, of course, usually before the pandemic, I like to make personal contact with the
Right.
people. But I've been talking a lot on phone. I've been doing a lot of virtual, meetings. Now, there have been some cases, obviously, where there's just some things that absolutely cannot be done virtually, as you well know. And I've had to travel to a few places, but during that time, I observed, social distancing and all the safety protocols and, wearing a mask. So for the investigative aspect of Fishwick and Associates, I hate to say it, but the pandemic has been good. We've been able to turn over a lot of stuff and find a lot of stuff. So,
Well, one of the things, Zach, you bring to the table, smart investigators have great people skills. And that's true in life, but it's true for anything you do in any job, but you've got really good people skills. So I think people always want to talk to you because you're an honest person and you're going to shoot straight with them. And that pays off. And I think people are more available during the pandemic, and that's been great for our firm and great for our clients. But I think it's your style and who you are that makes a difference when you're doing those interviews.
Well, thank you. I think that's just kind of one of the main building blocks of Fishwick and Associates. I mean, we treat people, we function on the golden rule. We treat others as we want to be treated. And I always remember, this gentleman once told me, when I did want to say something negative or I wasn't feeling it, he's like, well, he says nice things about you. So
Yeah.
With that, I will go ahead and I'll turn it back to you, John.
All right. Well, thank you. Now, Judge Daniel, there's been some rumors about, I don't know, I don't want to blow the thing, but there's been some rumors about maybe a dog entering your life in some capacity. I don't want, some people talking about a name. What was that name, Zach, that I heard they were talking about for Daniel's dog? If he gets a dog, and that would be his choice, but obviously I think he's feeling a little pressure along that side. What was the name?
I think I was left out of this conversation.
Yeah.
I didn't know, John. I mean,
Yeah.
Daniel's
And the name
I believe that the suggested name was either Judge or Honor.
Oh.
Not to give any credence to these unfounded rumors, but
Yes.
So let's start small. What about magistrate?
Yeah, it'll be some Latin name, knowing Daniel. So Daniel, you do a lot of things here at the firm, but one of the things we count on you for is research and writing. It's you got a big brain. We count on that. You've got a lot of experience doing it. You came to us with experience, but I think you've gotten better at it with us because you've seen what it's like in the trenches. But how has the research and writing and a little bit of the court appearances, since I think the research and writing is probably the same, but I'd like to hear from you on that. But then also you've done some court appearances, both virtually and like last Friday, you and I walked up to Roanoke City Circuit Court. So tell our viewers a little bit about that.
So unsurprisingly, the research and writing hasn't really been impacted by the pandemic too much. I mean, there was a time long ago when, if a lawyer wanted to do legal research, they would need to go to the law library and, kind of read legal parchment by candlelight. You might remember that, John.
John.
I do. We didn't even have candlelight. As you recall, on the farm where I grew up, we didn't even have candlelight.
You just had to finish by sunset.
Correct.
Right.
And it got tougher after daylight savings time. But you go ahead.
During those times, the pandemic might have, impacted legal research and writing more. But nowadays, it's all done by computer. There's not too many legal books. It's all on legal databases online. So, it's pretty much the same thing before the pandemic as it was after. The research and writing hasn't really changed all too much. As you did mention, court appearances have certainly changed. Before the pandemic, judges did telephonic hearings. Sometimes it wasn't exactly the norm, but they did them. They didn't really do, video conference hearings too much, but now that's, sort of become the norm in itself. So we'll have a lot of hearings by telephone or by Zoom, and it certainly adds a different dynamic to it. You kind of train for oral arguments in law school, but those were in person, in my day, way back when. So it's a little bit kind of getting used to the different dynamic of, doing it by phone or by Zoom, where you can't really, you don't really have that in-person experience.
Well, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Zach.
Well, I was just, speaking of, Latin and things in law school, when you went to law school, John, wasn't all your lectures conducted in Latin?
Yeah, pretty much, Zach. They did that. There was, they just had we didn't have any electricity, and they had it in a little wooden room, but it was in Latin, and some of the classes were in Greek. You know,
That's what I thought. Toga, Latin, and Greek. Okay.
so we covered both of those, but back in the day.
Is there
So
any chance we could possibly get you in a toga for a future episode?
I don't think so. The Halloween webisode was a stretch.
Maybe Halloween 2021. No
There
problem.
we go. There we go.
Yeah, absolutely. Something to think about. So anyways, I think we've covered a number of topics today. I hope of interest to our viewers. Zach, I'll get you to sign off. But again, our firm, we're honored to be selected in U.S. News and World Report and Best Lawyers, one of the best law firms. We think we are. We're proud of the work we do. And we look forward to seeing everybody next week. Zach, will you sign us off?
Absolutely. And again, we appreciate all the calls. They are coming in and we are answering them and getting back to you guys. Please keep them in. If you got any questions, hit us up, like, subscribe, and we will see you guys next week.